Hey, thank you for attending the August meeting of the West Dakota Water Development District. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of the United and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you. Next item is the roll call. To our Evan.
Okay, Ron Koth. He's here. Okay. Boucher.
Here.
Driscoll.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
Mullally.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Klein. Care.
Six here, seven counting, code via the web, so a total of 7 members present.
Yes.
Okay, item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. The board cannot take any official action on any item that is not on the agenda. Is there an approval of the agenda? Yes.
I'll suggest that we move items 11 and 13 to follow item 18, just to put kind of our administrative stuff towards the back of the agenda.
Okay, so you would like item 11 to be after item 18, or was you?
Correct, that'd be fine.
Okay, so item 11 will move behind item 18. And then you said item 13, you
Right.
also want moved behind the moved item behind item 18, 18, so that would be roughly item 20.
Sure, or 18A and D, or whatever, however you do it, that'd be fine.
The new item ordering will be the information ECC update will be now 11. Approval of volunteer waiver form will be 12. The $5,000 funding.
Okay, I missed all of that.
I'll come over.
So all of this
So,
Word document I have is going to have to be changed.
so we're gonna move this one behind item 18, which is the approval of this. Yeah, so
Well, but it won't be
it won't be.
18 because everything's going to move up.
So, so this,
So 11 and 13 after 18.
yep. So under the new item order, 11 would be 17, and then item 13 would then be 18, from the way my math is doing, and so those two get bumped to,
So 11, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18,
and then
and
it
then
falls back in order.
okay, so watch me on this.
Yeah, I'll keep it. So the suggestion move is to move formally item number 11, which will be item number 17. And then the move of item number 13 to become item number 18. Following the request from Director Driscoll. Any other changes?
Mr. Chair, I would like minor change on what's now draft agenda, is number 12, where it says ECC update. That's the erosion control committee, right?
Yes.
I would like that spelled out. I think this should be a standalone document,
Okay.
so the public won't be confused when they see acronyms.
Okay. On the agenda,
Move to approve with those changes.
Director Driscoll with the amendments,
Second,
seconded by Mullally. Open for discussion. State by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Same sign. Okay. Next item is the conflict of interest disclosure. If anybody has a conflict of interest on the presented agenda, please state it now and which item that you have the conflict with.
I'll abstain from voting on what had been item 11. I don't know if it's really a conflict, but I'll avoid the appearance, any appearance.
That you'd like to address at this time.
Excuse me.
Move to item number 5, the approval of the minutes. Moved by Dolphins. Move to approve by Driscoll, open for discussion.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't have any changes, but I just want to thank Mr. Stetler for putting in the yes and no votes, the names on the roll call for the budget, and just in general, county, the city, the state, on all the votes they put the yeas and nays, and in our policy, it does state that no votes and abstentions need to be recorded in minutes. So that's my general comment on that, but the minutes are fine what they are, I think. Yeah,
So what'd you say? No votes and
abstentions, so you might as well just put yes and no and abstentions. It's the way I used to do it, but check the policy.
hey, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same side. Pass. Item number 6 is treasurer's report.
Okay,
So,
can you all hear me?
we're gonna get a mic for you here real quick. Let me try to find my speaker. I don't know how to. Well, let's try it. Try it right here. Okay, go ahead and try. Let's see if we can. I would like a little better. I don't know where my speaker is on this thing. Trying to find my speaker, Ron. Front.
Yes. Yes.
Is that it?
Double check. Yes.
Try again,
Try again.
Yes.
Okay, down there.
Yes.
There, it's getting better.
Yes.
There we go. Is that good? Okay.
Being checking account and, our total fund goes directly right now to the, so. His account, and that's gonna. Be 127. And then this, technical amounts, they're showing this, they're, in our state ways. They're not two separate, items. Then you look at, expenditures maybe with the, the SGS. So So I don't know where that's really. So anyway, the email over there, I'm all spent 13,345. So display that, what director only is the administrative stuff. That I missed.
Ron, on the project report, page 9,
Yes.
under 2021 projects, and maybe I should direct this to Dan Driscoll. We're done with LaCroix, aren't we?
No, it's ongoing.
What are we doing there?
Last fall, we spread about 750, leaf bags in there, which was really highly successful and encouraging vegetation growth this year, and there's a number of small areas where we've not spread leaves that are totally bare shale, where we have plans to try to do some topsoiling, perhaps this fall.
Okay. Then on the 2022 projects, Ron, that Rapid Creek Restoration, Pennington County Conservation District, aren't we done with that? Didn't that kind of go by the wayside?
Well, for all intents and purposes, based on what we heard from the Pennington County, last meeting, we are done. Or the agreement we have with them extends.
So are we just gonna carry that amount until the end of the contract and then zero it out?
That there's nothing we expect to spend there. Either option is viable.
Thanks.
It's similar in some nature to the collaborative project. 1,559 that I have for the. Much more money we'll spend on those yet in 25. And Dave's thoughts.
Mr. Cook, Dan Malawi, does the, Green Valley Sanitary, does that run out, or is that just gonna go indefinitely, do you know? Green Valley Sanitary, does that have a sunset?
The decision the board has to make.
Okay.
One of the things that we discussed. complicated and expensive. When we commit to if we don't, it really puts a wrench in all the documents and plans that they have in place to make other this will be the best part.
Question from Dan Driscoll.
Two items on the erosion control projects that are referred to as sunsetting, that's where our current agreements go to, but traditionally here, for several years, we have been, extending them at the end of a year into another calendar year, which certainly a possibility would be my expectation for the upcoming year. Regarding the Pennington County, project, it would certainly be easy to initiate a discussion with them if they would like to close that out. My impression was that the period for signups is ending, and if they're expecting no more signups, it might bring clarity for both of us if we would, mutually agree to end it. And I think our agreement with them probably has terminology that allows that.
Chairman, who's the official liaison, their anticipated lack of signups. Our agreement to support that request for.
Any other comments or statements for the treasurer's report? Yes, Dan. Molly?
Larry, are we okay with our office lease now?
It's renewed. Yep. I mean, I've got the paperwork right here, but I viewed it just as like paying the phone bill and paying the bills. No, no, same.
Their motion to approve treasurer's
Who was that?
report.
Okay.
Hearing no-
I see the audio right now.
Oh, I removed the mic.
So,
Are you back? Okay.
so no discussion on the motion. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report state by saying aye. Aye. All those. Moving to item 7, approve of the 2026 budget and levy request. As you can see on page 11, shows the publication of the budget and of the levy from the notice of public hearing. Our projects for fiscal year looks like at 289,002, with a total fiscal year budget of 357,202. So it looks like, with tax revenue, we are slated for a 274,359. With interest, would put it at 30,000, for that 304,359. Is there a motion to approve the budget and levy as printed in our required newspapers?
Move to approve.
Move from, Bochet. Is there a second?
Second,
Seconded by Malali. Okay, open for discussion. Director Malali?
I just want to mention that what Mr. Stetler will now do, I believe, is take these numbers, put them in the spreadsheet for the state of South Dakota Department of Revenue. in October, so that's kind of the purpose of this discussion. Thank you.
Any other discussion from the board? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the 2026 budget and levy requests, state by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Okay, item number 8 is the approval of the policy change for the administrative hours.
Okay, so you did, motions 4 and 5 as one.
The approval of the budget and levy order. So, yeah. So
I broke them out to budget and then the levy based on the previous month. But so scratch motion 5 and
Yeah.
just put them in.
Yep.
Okay, so hold on a second. Let me just add this up there so I don't forget. Okay. Now I'm gonna have to renumber these. Okay,
So item number 8 is the approval of the policy change for the administrative office hours. See that, on page 13 of the agenda, the change is we are moving from 1 PM to 5 PM on Mondays to 10 AM to 2 PM. Everybody was officially noticed, we got proper policy at the last meeting, so we can vote on it. So is there a motion to approve the policy change for the move? So move?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to alter this, for the,
Of the, having it in the policies procedure, or to, what would you like to alter?
I'd like to delete the last sentence in this policy, if regular district employee contract, et cetera, and just insert temporary changes to office hours may be approved by the executive committee.
Okay, the issue with the, yes, correct.
Changes of it's meeting.
Spiritual.
Is it a notification?
The amendment, I'm just was notified. Make changes to it.
Things to make, yeah. Put it on the agenda and, you know, I think the item is validly on the agenda, so anybody with an interest in the office hours, opportunity to show up.
It has
I'm not sure what our policy says, but I thought we had to have
notification of the change
the verbiage, yeah.
sent out
15 days.
with the actual change, so that's how it's written into the policy. Now, you could probably change that through another policy change on that, but my understanding is that the change has to be submitted 15 days before voting to the. How I've read that. Okay. So,
Second,
yes.
I'll second.
Who did the,
Yeah.
oh,
Discussion on the motion of the approval of the policy change. All those in favor of the policy change, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Same side, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I, Director McGregor, abstains.
Abstain, okay. Okay, item number 9 is the Keystone Bridge Project update, and that is Director Malott.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Today we have Matt. Doherty. Okay. Trustee with Keystone, and Sandy McLean is a former trustee. And we granted them $10,000 to clean out the debris or accumulation under the Winter Street Bridge. And I was down there before the repair was done, and I saw the problem. And I assume it was money well spent or they would not be here. So Sandy, do you want to, or whoever,
You guys,
we need a microphone on the.
I gotta teach your voice. Can you hear me guys? Thank you. It's in the essence of time, Matt and we put a grant together. Approached, you guys about 2 years ago. Yes, it's 2 years down the road, but that's how long the permitting took for us to get. And I'll tell you why. In Keystone, because we had flood issues, it basically put, there were some mistakes that were done previous on former bridges that came about when this happened. And so we had to take care of those problems first before we moved on. And then FEMA would grant those permits once those things were taken care of. That took a little bit of time. So finally, when we got the permission to do this, which was in December of last year, it basically allowed us to start. But the weather was fairly nice, but the company that actually had the lowest bid was ANCO, which has done extremely good work in our community and good follow through. Well, what happened, if you remember last March and April, everything froze. It got really, really cold. There were, in fact, the Winter Street Bridge they had to use, and I did put a summary of why this was all delayed, so you can kind of look at that. When we actually came to your committee, it really didn't fit the mission statement totally. And so we had people divided 2 years ago on the committee, but it did pass. And just for you to understand, we're not a community that has a ton of money. 61% of our population is in the poverty level. We do not have property tax. The only thing we have is sales tax, and that's what our budget is, plus water and sewer. And so it's a very difficult road to hoe when we had quite a few different bridge projects and things that we were finishing. So we were very excited and extremely thankful that you guys funded this project. And as he goes through on the pictures, I think you'll see, you couldn't even crawl underneath our bridges. And you can see the snow and the frozen. They started on, it was Third Street, which is right by the Comfort Inn. And it wasn't as severe as the Winter Street project, so these first diggings are from the Third Street Bridge. And they took a little bit too much out, and they're having to repair that to make FEMA happy. But they're just finishing up on that. I'm gonna have to add some sediment back into some of the areas. But like this, as you're looking down there, you could only have on the Third Street Bridge, you had about 2 feet. So a person couldn't really crawl underneath there. So the flood potential on both of these were extremely dangerous. As he progresses through, that's how much room now that we have underneath that bridge, which is very adequate. All of the sediment had to be removed and taken other places. The total cost on the, and if you move to the next frame on there, it shows beginning to do the one that was the worst. And this one is down by Quality Inn, which is right across the street. And you couldn't even get a body in there or a head in there. So what the danger was is that if you would have a flood, and in previous years it was starting to come over the banks, this year was extremely dry, so we were lucky that they could get back into that. And in moving to the next frame, it was solid ice. They had to use a machine and lay down a blanket so that it would melt all the ice underneath that bridge so that they could get through and remove the sediment. I don't know where they took the sediment to, but basically it dump truck loads of sediment, which only occurred in about 4-year period of time. And you can see that ANCO was very good at taking the rolls and putting it down there to prevent any washout. And we have some pretty high storms this year with a lot of rain. I've never seen so much rain in the month of July. But it was holding all of that. The seedlings were all coming back, and it looks frankly very beautiful as you're coming into town on both sides. And I tried to explain the detail or timeline of that in your sheet. And also that they're still working on the Third Street Bridge to fill in some of that area that needs to be filled in. I know that sounds stupid, but you know how humans. They have various requirements that you have. Questions? Matt was here, now he was voted back in and I'm turned out. So I felt like it was important for you to know that he was on this when we came and applied for this.
On the picture to the right are those waddles and
Waddles, yeah, I didn't know the official
are
name.
they gonna stay there?
No. They're going to remove them, but they didn't, because it's been rainy, they didn't want to remove them and take the seedlings out because it's really growing up. And those are older pictures right now, so if you come up there, it's pretty solid, but they're apparently going to take.
And then how long back this will last?
Probably another 5 years, depending on if it's a dry year. This year is supposed to be, I guess, a lot of snow. So, you can estimate that it took 5 years for that buildup to take place.
Yeah, but we had a lot of that change, we had a really bad flood. 2019, late spring, and it brought so much material from that bridge that we guys helped us with, all over down every single part of Keystone where you gotta cross them over the waterway. And with some bridges down in the older part are bigger and they can handle it, but when the creek is wider, but these are old, and that's a lot of that came from that. But it always gradually, right, it's just if we have a big flood, we half they have police the bridges and just fully flooded the town. We had the Bangor town before. We won't, that was a really big issue. We don't see that happening. Even if we have a flood, we have enough accommodate that, if you will, for that thing. And you have two creeks, Creek and River Creek, that come together right in the, by the stoplight sign. And that just, that water just accumulates and just comes and just brings so much material back and forth. It's really good way than that.
5 years ago, you. So
We had some bobcat work that had to have been done.
But we realized that we might be in conflict with GA and Marcia, we stopped that, and then that's when we got our money together and set.
okay, well, be nice to have something more permanent, but.
I want to thank you guys very, very much. And by the way, I didn't tell you that the total cost of the Winter Street project was $89,600. And I didn't ask Sam when I was down there, but I think that was his total cost after it. So probably was 99 cheap. The other bridge was much more. But I spared them cheaper.
Okay, moving to item number 10. West Dakota Water Development District Insurance and other coverage update, and to approve the South Dakota Assurance Alliance payment. If that goes to Mr. Director McGregor.
If you take a look at, page 14, and Dan Dritzler and myself, I met with a number of different insurance providers, and we finally found somebody that could tie into some coverage for volunteers for the erosion control project and other projects we may be undertaking. This, on page 14, the policy we're recommending that we obtain would be the last one under Plan 2, the last one to the right, primary medical with temporary total disability benefits. The cost for that per year is $5.37 per volunteer. The company $300. So that would be enough to provide us with coverage for. And I met with the agent just a couple of days ago, and he wanted to know if, where we went ahead and approved this, if any members of this board had any questions about the coverage we were seeking to obtain, so that he could answer them for us before we went ahead with this. And Dan and I asked him a number of questions about it, and we're satisfied with the answers. So it's our recommendation that we go ahead and obtain this insurance. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to do that, that the voluntary insurance coverage sub policy is shown on page 14 of the agenda for a total premium cost of $300.
Second.
So this is not South Dakota Assurance Alliance?
It is not.
Okay, I thought that's what you said. So approved payment of Chubb?
Chubb.
That was Chubb. for 300, what was that?
$300.
300.
Annual premium, $300.
Okay. Oh, we got a question. Just a second, Ron, we're getting the mic for you. Okay,
House or in coverage, um, are those really having $1 million really the limit for somebody to
So the aggregate limit for claims, would be the $1 million, but, you know, this seems to be the maximum available coverage we could find. When we undertook this, it was because the medical insurance provided through the South Dakota Assurance policy was capped out at $5,000. They are not able to increase that. That is their standard coverage. So we went looking for additional coverage and came up with this policy. And I think it's about the best we can do.
Okay, let's very well be.
Definitely.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman. Right now, the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance, we cover 5,000.
5,000.
Volunteer, is there a list we have to provide them of names of the volunteers? And how do they know?
No, we asked him that and he said, you know, all we need to do is, if there's an injury to a volunteer, file the claim. But we don't need to provide them with need. Volunteer is basically one body for the policy period. So if that volunteer participates in more than, you know, one project, each participation does not count against, you know, us as a separate volunteer. It's just one person for a year, regardless of how many projects they work on.
Volunteers again, this company?
About 50.
Just over 50, and they simply have you make an estimate of how many volunteers you would think you would need, kind of an honor system, and if we would end up with more volunteers, we would no doubt the next year say, well, we need to up our estimate. You know, last year I had begun tracking volunteer efforts, kind of because of our upcoming 319 project and whatnot, and we had a total of about 15 volunteers last year. So I'm very comfortable that 50 would be adequate.
Okay, thank you. I support this.
I'll make one more note that I did pursue as fully as possible to the end of the line with the South Dakota Assurance Alliance. If there was any sort of additional coverage there, and it turns out that, you know, it is possible to cover volunteers under the workers' comp policy, but that can be done only if we have employees, which we do not have. So that became a non-option. So this type of policy seems to be all that's available. And there actually are other carriers out there, and they seem to be all pretty similar. You know, it's just kind of a bare minimum sort of coverage. Hey, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor to approve the payment of $300 for the insurance for next year for volunteer protection, state by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? Okay, motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, we do have another insurance item that we need to take action on, and that's to authorize Larry to pay the premium for the South Dakota Assurance Alliance, which provides O&M coverage for the board of directors and a certain other liability coverage is not having to be volunteer necessarily. We usually get that bill in August, and I don't know if we've gotten it yet. So,
I sent in the paperwork in fact, it was in June, but haven't seen anything from them yet. So,
Over, bill comes in, we need a lot. That motion to authorize the administrator to pay the premium for Usher Alliance. That's roughly about 18.
So the motion on the floor is to allow the administrator to make payment to the South Dakota Assurance Alliance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Driscoll. All those in favor? Oh, discussion, sorry. Discussion on the motion.
A couple things, Scott alluded to basically some other coverages there. I had we were having difficulty finding someone to do the volunteer coverage. I ended up, talking to the Dave Schmidt Insurance Agency, where I have insurance. I've known Dave Schmidt's been in the business for 48 years, and I said, above and beyond the volunteer thing, there are, sometimes rental equipment, vehicles, things like that involved, and, he's actually very familiar with the South Dakota Assurance Alliance. He rattled off to me a list of coverages that really we should have. And then, Director McGregor had eventually circulated our policy, which I sent to him, and he went back down the list. He says, you're covered on all fronts with this. So, it's, we really, and I guess you kind of referred to that perhaps a year ago, that we had upped the ante, Dan, on some of these things. So it looks like we've got what we need to, cover these projects that we've been working on.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor to approve the administrator to make the payment to South Dakota Assurance Alliance. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we are moving to item number 11, which is now the information for the Erosion Control Committee update. And I believe that is from the Erosion Control Committee.
So I had circulated a couple of slides. I don't know if you loaded them, Larry. It doesn't really matter. People had a chance to see them ahead of time. The first two, the one we're looking at there is what used to be a head cut above that third of an acre that we topsoiled back in our first year of efforts at Star Village. This spring, working with several volunteers, we basically sledded some dirt down there and we first sort of just peeled back a little bit of the head cut, the steepest part, the actual kind of vertical part of it, rolled it down the hill a bit against some wattles, covered with topsoil, seed and blanket. And this year's been a great year for growing things, and it just totally took off. So we're looking at a stretch there that's about 100 feet in length, kind of to the right of that pine tree that's on the left. It's actually 2 pine trees there. And then the next slide, Larry, shows the head cut to the left, and so that's to date been treated only with wattles and yard waste and things like that. It's semi-stable, but this is actually probably this is the single largest head cut that we have on the property. It's basically taller than I am. from bottom to top in most places, and basically at about a 1-to-1 slope, and so, really proved to be very successful, maybe to some extent thanks to what turned out to be good growing conditions, but, anyhow, then one more slide there shows an area basically that's had partial vegetation. All the wattle lines that you see in there were installed, 2 years ago during a day of tearing project with the United Way with help from the National Guard, but the area to the right is mostly bare shale. The area to the left, it has been partial vegetation, and we've been treating that now for several years with, leaf litter in the fall, and it really came on there this year and other similar locations. So, that's proving to be really effective in areas where we've got, kind of the partial vegetation, partial erosion. One little update then, I sent an email on it that, we've got agreement, with National Guard and United Way to, do another project this fall, and we're gonna focus on leaf litter. Last year we did about 1,500 bags, about half those at Star Village and half at LaCroix, and, we're on a lot of volunteers like myself that are really too old to be doing that, but, these guys are a lot younger and, we'll put them to work, so. Yeah, that, I guess, one other thing with our committee, I'll probably turn it over to Roy here. Roy, you kind of got a little bit of a start on coming up with a mechanism for, prioritizing some of these projects in the future. Do you want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, I've gone through and I've got basically my first cut developed. And the main items that we'll be looking at for ranking will be distance from a water body, distance from like a storm sewer that's next to a water body, buffer strips, project size, project slope, project ownership. So I'm starting to put together these items, and when I get into the second cut, I'm gonna send it out to the erosion control committee, and we'll look at, tweaking it, modifying it, and probably add some, numbers, the scoring system to it, so. Quick question, Ben Wiley, strip is valid, non-impervious surface and vegetative, those things.
Yeah, Roy, it's Ron Gould.
Okay, hold on, Ron, get it, Mike.
And you got the
Okay.
blanket place.
Yes.
Okay, Roy, I guess, one of the questions that we have is, are you also gonna be considering some, measure of benefit, to the water body, whether it's, reduction in cellular yield or some.
Yeah, I think that's something that we will need to have included into the ranking system. Point, we'll look into it.
Board? Any other comments from the committee?
That's it?
Drop your mic back.
Nope.
Okay, it'd be item number 12, approval of the volunteer waiver form. Um. Hold on. Straight up, yep. Oh, right.
That one.
Do not think it made it into the packet due to the time that it was received. So it is up there.
Who developed the form?
Wasn't
Ru-
it Director McGregor? You developed the.
I wrote it, yeah. I wrote it.
Yeah, Director McGregor wrote it.
A month ago, we had a first cut on it in our packets. There was a version that I had, basically patterned after the city parks department has a form. And we changed a few things to make it pertinent to West Dakota. And then I turned it over to Scott, and he did a little bit of wordsmithing to make it, a little more user friendly, a little less legalese.
Take all the legalese out of it so that, you know, it can be understood. The question I really have with it is as it's drafted, it provides for signatures by multiple people, which I assume would be all the volunteers at a given time for the project, instead of each individual separately signing, you know, a waiver form. That's different as long as we have a signature on the waiver. It's drafted as a collective waiver for project.
Director McPherson, just a quick question. I assume that this doesn't necessarily apply to any of our Ignite volunteers. They would be covered separately through the county.
Right. If we
I actually had a discussion with, the Ignite person that would handle that. They are required to sign their own waiver forms, and they actually have a medical coverage for them, accidental medical, similar to ours. And of course, if we're able to utilize them, you know, I really don't consider them volunteers, it's still a different category, but yeah, I think they are essentially self-sufficient. One other comment would be that it would certainly, you know, be easy to do if you recommended, Scott, that, you know, we could have, just one signature for each individual. You know, the wording in there states that once an individual has signed the form, you know, it stays active until they terminate it. So, as opposed to the one used by the Parks Department, they basically sign up volunteers each time. And, you know, which gets to be quite a dog chase, you know, so if you think it would, you know, be better suited, we could certainly, you know, change it to individual, you know, one signature per, you know, page, that would not be difficult.
I don't, to me, it doesn't particularly matter one way or another, whatever the board is most comfortable with, I would assume.
Is there a motion to approve the?
I would, just so everybody knows, I would note that legally you cannot require people to wait. Our negligence, this waiver would not cover.
the volunteer waiver form as presented. Or
I would move approval.
I will second.
move approval by Director McGregor, seconded by Director Driscoll. Open for discussion. Discussion on the waiver form. Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor, state by stating aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we are moving to item number 13, which is the approval of the new project funding up to $5,000 for the collaborative erosion control project with Cornerstone Mission. I think that is correct, Crystal.
Yes, that's me. The information is in the packet. It was in our packet a month ago and we had, discussion on it then, so I guess I won't say much other than to point out that the last paragraph, above the table, where the last two sentences start out by saying that West Dakota will continue to monitor revegetation progress and provide maintenance as needed through the fall of 2026. And then beyond that, Cornerstone will be responsible for all future monitoring and maintenance. There's been some concern as to whether or not we would be married to these projects forever, and deemed useful to state that we're not getting married ourselves forever. If conditions of you to have unexpected circumstances, it would certainly be easy enough to say, well, we need to extend the project. I guess, having said that much, I guess I will make a motion to approve the funding of $5,000 for this project. I think probably got a motion in place there.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Driscoll, seconded by Mullally. Discussion on the item.
Jairus, Director Driscoll, what was that you said about 2026?
We're hoping to get the work done this fall.
Is that a change from,
Right, the last two sentences are new. The last two sentences above table one are new. Well, they are different than what was in our packet at our July meeting.
I see the 2026. Okay.
Right, so basically, we're saying that we're hoping to get our work done this fall, and then we'll kind of continue to monitor for another year and turn it over to March.
We talked about this before, but I think these efforts have been pretty successful, so I'm going to support this project. I've seen before and after examples of shale, exposed shale and the movements.
Questions or comments?
Yep, yep, we're getting a mic here. Okay,
Okay, so bear with me, I have a kind of a long comment, then I may make a substitute motion. So first off, there's been some effort. water quality and supply projects through organization, financial assistance to prospective existing project sponsors. Number two, the recommendation of projects for inclusion in the state water plan. A 3A environmental impact statements. 46 46A-2 is to deal with Audubon Conservancy District. Borrow money and to construct water. Related, that a water development district. Where we're going with this stuff. I'm not a lawyer. (2024), where it specifies that the chair the terminology.
a substitute motion on the floor or proposed by Director Code to table all three erosion control projects and halt until it is reviewed until we find that if it matches the policies of the statute that defines West Dakota. Is there a second for this motion? I will second it. Seconded by Director Young. Okay. Second. Discussion on the proposed motion.
Chair Dan Morelli. Thank you, Mr. Coe, for that thorough look at the codified law. Makes me wonder if our mission statement is even correct, because we have evaluation and protection of water quality, and it seems to me this does fit that. As far as the impairment, how far downstream this affects, be honest, that's beyond my pay grade, but, we had this discussion somewhat a few years ago when Jason Phillips had his inventory project. And we, seemed like the consensus back then was that we definitely affect everything downstream of us. Still think this is probably a good project. Still support it, thank you.
Comments from the board, any discussion on the proposed motion? Yes, Director Driscoll.
It's, there was reference to the fact that, questions had been raised by the executive committee to the erosion control committee. I guess I recall that at our last meeting, we produced a document, a planning document that had been developed, specifically per request of an email transmitted by Chairman Mack. That was in our July packet. I've got a July packet with me. We had discussion on that. There was basically no discussion, questions raised by the executive committee at that point in time saying, well, you didn't answer this adequately and that adequately. We've plowed all this turf. It's become very apparent that Director Coth is not in favor of doing this work. It seems like there's a stigma that West Dakota cannot reach out to cooperators such as Cornerstone, City Parks Department, School of Mines, and see if they want to partner on these things. This is all pretty new, the legal language. I thought there was kind of a number 3 clause that had been mentioned referring to any and all legal matters, which I think clearly covers something like this. Over in eastern South Dakota, they've got a long track record of implementing 319 projects. It's a little bit different thing. We've got a 319 project coming up, so it's I guess it doesn't surprise me that we've got a substitute motion such as this. I will be voting against it.
Any other?
Simon? But regardless of the technical details, the cornerstone mission, even, you know, these missionary components, each know how they might address a successful appeal. Was particularly developed to
No comments or discussion?
I have a question.
If you're interested in reading Article E, scroll back.
Does a substitute motion get a new number or how? A substitute motion for number 9. Okay,
Does not have to go back to.
okay.
Hearing no other discussion, the motion on the floor is to table the 3 proposals. So it would be proposals 13, 14, and 15 in your packet. And further such proposals until the West Dakota Water Development Board decides on how to proceed with such projects. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same side.
Aye.
Roll call.
Hey, Koth,
Motion.
O'Shea, Driscoll,
Vote no.
McGregor,
No. No.
Mullally,
No,
Young,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Klein and Care are not here. So that is 3 yes, 3 no, 1 abstain.
So the motion fails. So we go back to the first motion up on the item, which is to approve the new road control project coming with Cornerstone Mission. That one is back open for discussion. Discussion on the motion.
This is Coth again. I guess we'll grind through it. Let's get it up on the screen.
Wrong.
So to start with, I'm not sure what you had in the first paragraph. Erosion control is landscape feature. May or may not be basically is going to be doing this project with the assistance of some unknown number of volunteers. Form says that there needs to be a display actual project final way to do erosion control on steep slopes, which is not proven. So it's, and again, it's that.
Okay, hearing no more discussion, the motion on the floor is to approve the new erosion control project for, approve the new erosion control project funding for the Cornerstone Mission Project as stated in the packet. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Aye. Okay, roll call.
Oath. O'Shea. Pardon me.
Yes.
Driscoll.
Yes.
McGregor.
Yes.
Mullally.
Yes,
Young.
No.
Mac.
No.
And Klein and Care are absent, so that is 4 yes, 3 no.
Fourteen. The project funding. Item number 14 is to approve a new project funding of up to $15,000 for a collaborative erosion control project with South Dakota School Mines. That is, again, Director Driscoll in the EEC committee.
Well, again, we, had discussion on this at our July meeting. The proposal has changed, in two ways on this. Initially, we had included, the proposed cost initially was $25,000. It's now been reduced to $15,000. The reason for that, there's, one of the areas to be included was the location of what had been called the Living Lab. It was a research project that was funded early on by West Dakota in collaboration with the School of Mines. And through discussions with the folks at Mines, there's been possibilities of some additional research that could occur there, and we decided it would be best just to remove that area from consideration. So that brought the cost down to $15,000 instead of $25,000. Beyond that, the wording at the bottom of page 23 is now new wording. Or at least part of it is, the plans are hopefully to complete efforts by the fall of this year. And again, monitor through the fall of 2026, and then after that, turn responsibility for future monitoring over to the School of Mines. So, we've actually got 3 people here from the School of Mines: Heidi Sieverding, O2, Bryce Miner, and Julia Rothfelder. So, between the 3 of you, I guess the floor would be yours to speak.
Free flow, and so, as Ken mentioned with the monitoring, we're able to go out there and actually look at how things are changing. People really close by the line. What's working, what isn't working, even after you are no longer involved in the project, and getting what some of the research students as well. To keep on physical monitoring, but you have access to see time and comparing that with what was happening before the way you go with these.
So in other words, quantify how much it impacts the creek. So we actually measure where the surface is right now. And is the soil that's being added to it, vegetation, being added to it, is it? Versus saying that.
Or to quantify it, just out of curiosity, I mean, the engineer, I'm, with the solar right there, so.
So with using either drone data or LiDAR data, especially LiDAR, you can get actual. LiDAR tells you distances between your reading thing and delivery. So if you do that over the period of time, you can get to the. Line, and then from the aerial view, actually put it on the.
Will you be able to see a difference, or is that gonna be like a 5, 10, 15, 20?
So we did a residency project and they took data exactly in your part and just so you can see it. So take me more often than you, but yes, we will see it actually.
Back to the historical photographic record and try to gauge what that site looks like when we first started having aerial images.
So I've gone through the historical photographs of the schools, which go back a lot. And there are areas where there was some. Where those apartment buildings are, that slope and that erosion was caused by the construction. So that actually coincides with the different stages of. Now, the area on the other side of the stadium, has to do with when the stadium site was constructed. There's some issues with the. A lot of cheap little water, hillside down, had a canoe and raft. So we've done the improvements of that, where we can catch a lot of that stuff, but one of them is the middle tier ramp, where we got a new line, storm sewer line up and through. I didn't know this existed, so I thought this was an awesome collaboration of trying to, obviously, one, beautify the ramp area, but also the purpose of between the washout. It's just when we, as much moisture we've had, it's a lot of sediment on the ground. So actually, any of the sediment, because this storm sewer is right there, any of the sediment goes directly into the storm sewer and goes across the street and into the lake. Short distance. And there's a lot of disturbance by people visiting the stadium. People don't stay off the grass. They drive on the grass. They drive on the grass when it's wet. They drive on the grass when it's snowy. And because there is that interaction with the public, it requires some different methods that perhaps just we see. One question you guys might have is, well, why can't mine school it? Well, I can answer that as, the school mine's about 115 acres. Of that, about serviceable, as we have probably about approximately maybe 70, acres that we have to just maintain through roads, grass, etc. So we only have 3 full-time grounds. That's a lot to mow. Plant, prune, campus is big. So it's just when it gets to these little things like this, you don't have the time or resources to address it. So again, I think that this is just an amazing opportunity, so, but. Just, we used to have 5, now we're down with the budget, so, at least the last couple of years, but. We do have a part-time one that we've had able to keep on this summer, and we also have, 3 to 4 summer help, but that kind of just helps us low. During the summer months, when they go back to school during the regular school year, so.
Campbell Valley. So if I heard, it's important to have good metrics when you mention it. If I heard you right, you can use LiDAR data. Slide. With the improvement. see how much material has eroded away, say. It sounded like you were saying everything that comes off of those areas is gonna end up in the creek just because of the stormwater. Is that true?
For the ramp area,
Is there something you calculate that says we're losing, so much volume per day or something, or?
well, we
And then
will,
you look at, compare that to that, and you do an improvement and estimate that again, I'm just trying to understand.
that's the idea, is if you have the baseline measurement and then you do it at different points in time to see how it's changing for it. It's not just.
Are they common proven method of?
So there's lots of remote sensing applications where you're getting actual data. So I have to see if for erosion applications, how much, what people have.
Yeah, I guess what I'm taking, the takeaway is that this is a method that works. People are using it, and the sediment would end up in the creek.
Yeah, and I use some other remote sensing data to different.
Thank you.
Comment I should have made at the beginning, I had a discussion with what used to be called the Alumni Association at the School Alliance to see if they could help solicit volunteers, recognizing the Ignite program was more demands on their time. They have to prioritize servicing city properties, and School of Mines would be kind of down the list, and the Alumni Association was very enthused about that possibility. The other thing I'd like to specifically ask Price as facilities manager, we have you written down for various things. I'm sure you've read them, rubber tired skid steer in places where it's possible, fencing, traffic control, things like that. And are you able to commit to, to meet that commitment?
We are able to meet.
I got a question for you guys, especially about the stormwater one right at the stadium, and you said that if people like to wander, and I understand I've seen people wandering in the stadium. With this project trying to be implemented in the fall is also football season. You have multiple different football groups from like knee high to college in that area. How are you guys going to protect the area so that all the work isn't, ran over or damaged? Because that was one of the problems with the experimental site, is that somebody went through and absolutely kind of destroyed it. So that is a concern that I have. I'm not saying that like that is the make or break for me on this, but that is a concern that I have. Especially when you guys said people like to walk up there.
And so that's actually one of the challenges that we do need to address. How do we keep people off of these areas? And we're gonna have to. We need to break out the orange snow fencing. And put it up there. I think we'd rather not take extreme steps. But we recognize this isn't going to be something that. It's probably going to happen, and it will be a challenge to get off of it, but we'll try to fix it. Try to come up with a solution that works to keep people off the area. Maybe it might depend in some instances, just keep an eye on it and try to do timely repairs. So how do we fix it when it's a small problem versus becoming a bigger problem? And that's where the advantage of having students there in campus and working in the project is they can go out and they can be watching with it.
and say, hey, we need to feel passionate. Or, hey, people are sitting off of this. We need to do something different.
How many students do you think will be involved within the class, or is it a social club, or is it just people that like you a lot as the fact they're, you said.
They do need her.
Sure. John Talsh, city council member in Box Elder, here today as a citizen. But it seems to me like this is a good, maybe test bed project for future collaboration for maybe the water district. If they got all these tools and technology they can use in this project, that quantifiable data, maybe down the road with other projects you have, you guys collaborate and get a lot of data extrapolated out of this, so you can use it further down the road. Just an idea that I think.
Well, maybe you answered this, but how far back does your line of data go? Or are you just gonna start this up when you sign this contract, or are you going back years?
So let's answer the first question. Several different classes within our discipline, and so it would be a really great application to have, because it's local, you can go to their class and actually go where it's like different technologies that you're facing. The plan would be to actually focus that some of the. In my intro class, we got 50 students in it, and my senior class has 50 students, so you can get a. So we do have data, there is later data in the city. The city has data that they have been contracting with that is really tricky. When we're talking about the LiDAR data, we actually purchased last spring a handheld LiDAR scanner. That's very high resolution, that enables us to look very intensely at specific features, rather than taking something that is just average over the landscape. We'll be able to say, okay, how big is this height cut? Establish a current control point, measure that height cut with very high depth of collection. And so we just got that piece of equipment. As far as the buildings, a student that the department sponsored for the last 2 years that has been regularly flying hillsides around this to try to monitor for erosion. Julia and Calvin have been processing the data. I believe that the student who's coming back, who was working previously, will do it just because.
It says all project activities will be completed by late fall of 2025. Well, that's like almost now. But you have no historical data to look at.
What's this initiative? This is.
I don't know how many pictures you have on that slide, but if you're to go down, level and make packet, a 26 of 33 packet. So one more, there you go. So what I would say is phasing, late fall, especially with, you don't say we're still in summer, in spring, like rain we've got. I was looking, last football, home football game is November 15th. So I would almost propose is saying we could do area 3B first, and that can be done before football, during football, because if there's really that's the hillside, there's no traffic, there's no foot traffic, et cetera. And then wait till the last home game and address area 3A, because that's where a lot of the people drive, walk, et cetera. It's kind of a pinch point when you enter the stadium ramp there, just off to the right, it kind of veers off the street. That's what I would say, so how we've attacked.
If we approve this, then
the data out there, but we would as soon as the property.
I don't know if you answered my question, how far back is that data going?
So the city of Rapid City. The first. But for the last 5 years, they've been subscribing to the data service, but they haven't had it.
City data go back to 2000?
I believe their original LiDAR data set and files I already have. Haven't looked at them.
Well,
They're
I think you see what-
more than years.
And to answer that, in other projects that I've worked with, there's a photographic record of those hillsides from the time that Tech first had cameras. If you go through the South Dakota, archives, you can see archival footage of that hillside from when photography was first invented. And it goes, you've got a photographic record that goes way back. And it's not the same, I mean, we're comparing apples and oranges, but if you're looking at the LiDAR, you're also looking at historical photographs.
Thank you.
I'll point out, beyond the areas around the stadium, area one, there's 5 different, that's on page 25 is a map. There are 5 different erosional scars in basically the northwest corner of the campus, near those apartment buildings and just east from there. And those do not receive a lot of foot traffic, and we'd be able to work on those, in advance of November, but, Bryce, your point is well taken, as far as let the football season get by before working near the stadium.
And those ones are believed. That was a temporary stabilization. To the manager. Put a whole bunch of culvert sections and backfill them to put as much mass at the base to stabilize it. And we gave it as a temporary measure, and it's been sitting there since then, just because at some point in time, we're gonna.
And I'll add to that those culverts are holding up the hillside,
Yeah.
but the erosion that's occurring is going straight over the culverts onto that parking lot and straight into the storm sewer. So it's a direct contribution to, the Rapid Creek.
And that's that area to the right you're talking about?
Right, those 5 areas shown on page 25, the areas 1A through 1E. 3 of them are near the apartment, and then 2 just a little farther to the east.
And 2 years ago, we put mag spikes. Our control points are moving too.
Director Driscoll, this is just a question for you on page 23. There's a lot of ambiguous language that concerns me. When we're talking about the Ignite program, they may be able to provide labor, we don't know. When we're talking about the next paragraph, volunteer labor for the installation process may be recruited through Mines or West Dakota, or maybe the Rapid City Wildlife Mitigation Group. Do we have any solid MOUs with any of these groups for this project?
With the Ignite program, they do not operate with any sort of an MOU. It's, they were set up to assist on Star Village, and then it turned out there's a an issue with the city there, so that fell through. Since then, they have indicated they're being more heavily demanded by the city, and so, working on the mines property would be a difficulty, not as high a priority. That's why I talked directly to the alumni association to see if they could help solicit alumni, and there are many of us in Rapid City, and it doesn't require a workforce of hundreds, a workforce of, people would be huge, and I think that's very, very doable, so I apologize, things have changed a little bit, but, I think we're sitting really good with a volunteer outlook through the Alumni Association. Any other comment?
Well, then, so we could assume Ignite will not be involved in this?
Well, at this point in time, if we can get the alumni, that's 100% better. That's,
My other real question I had is, what's the difference between the track skid steer rental of for $1,000 and mines will provide a rubber steered skid steer for you?
so there are a couple of the areas, that would be specifically on the proposal. Page 25, there's an area 2 shown there. That's near the living lab where rubber tired skid steer will be adequate. And then on page 26, this is spelled out in the table, on area 3A is up above the stadium. Again, rubber tired skid steer will be adequate in there. The other areas will require a tracked skid steer. So, part of your question, Bill, the Wildland Fire Mitigation Crew owns a tracked skid steer, and they, depending on their availability, fire seasons and whatnot, they have helped us on Star Village on several occasions. They intend to help us there again. If they are available, they will do that free of charge, and if they are not available, the rental price is included there. I plan to rent one, and if they're able to do the work, that will save us on the rental cost. Does that answer the question?
That was McGregor's question.
Yeah. Basically, some areas are too steep for a rubber tired vehicle to be used.
Right, and then the track skid steer, the rubber tire just spins out on this stuff, and the track skid steer, when you get on these steeper slopes, it will manage them.
Not to mention that the track skid steer has much less, impact PSI wise.
Now, any other questions or comments for the finance officials?
And, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Dan or somebody, can you give me a summary of just what mines is going to contribute to this project? Not clear to me from all this verbiage exactly what mines is gonna do.
It's specifically spelled out, page 23.
Yeah, I read all that, but it doesn't mean mines and control traffic, put up a fence, possibly other vehicle, in exchange for which we're gonna provide $15,000 and coordinate labor and do the work.
So we will be providing equipment to if you buy a shelf that's $40-$50.
Which is awesome, but that's not really our concern. You know,
But we'll
the
be
science
using
is
that.
your concern, which is what I grew up on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
But if we're going to quantify all of this, those are all contributions as well, from that, they're gonna be. And the students' minds and efforts, really spend effort, time spending effort. It all adds up for them.
certain stuff, so like we can't just let someone else use our equipment, so therefore our own ground crew would be operating that skid steer to, facilitate the areas. And then also, you already mentioned traffic control, and, just monitoring, watering, et cetera.
We can't think of something like that, and stop it.
I thought you told me early on, you already had 2 months to take care of it, you couldn't do this.
That's the partnership that we're able to try to help make this happen, so it won't happen.
The top of page 23, there is some, it's kind of vague about, analyzing the data, using drones, identify how the revegetation efforts have affected the topography and sediment transport, so I assume there's gonna be some kind of semi-formal report coming out of this. With tables and numbers that say before and after type thing.
There is probably.
I thought that might be something. Okay.
Yes, we'll have numbers.
That'd be great.
There a motion? Or, I guess I neglected that, I will move to approve the funding of up to $15,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Cloud. Discussion on the motion?
Yes, we're ready to go.
Discussion on the motion? Yep. Any more discussion? The motion on the floor is to approve the erosion control project for the School of Mines, funding up to $15,000. All those in favor of the motion state by stating aye.
Right?
All those opposed, same side. Roll call.
Okay, Coth. O'Shea.
Yes.
Driscoll.
Yes.
McGregor.
No,
Mullally.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Mac.
No.
And Klein and Kerr are absent, so that is 4 yes, 3 no.
Item number 15, approve additional project funding of $25,000 for the continuation of the Star Village Erosion Control Project with the City of Rapid City and Steep Property Management. That goes to fiscal and the Erosion Control Committee.
Once again, we discussed this a month ago. The proposal, the other proposals, there were changes in wording in terms of passing maintenance on to the other entities. In this case, the plan is an interim plan intended to carry us through the period such that if and when a 319 project would develop. So, this is, we're really kind of in it for the long term and not trying to fix the whole area, simply continuing to chip away at the edges. We're not only keeping it from enlarging, we are shrinking it. We've dramatically reduced the sediment transport from the site and, continue small scale efforts like that. So, I'm geared up to have, Scott Anderson on the phone here. I guess I will make a motion to approve the funding of $25,000 for continuation of this project, and then I'll see if I can get Scott on the phone. Scott Anderson with the Parks Department. He was at our meeting the last week or the last month that he's, ready again. Unfortunately, Zadeep had another crisis come up and unable to participate.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Bochet. Discussion.
Hey, Scott, I've got Scott Anderson on the line here, so, we're just starting discussion. We've made a motion and, I guess you can listen and see if questions come up for you.
Okay, discussion on the motion.
Scott, Bill Young here. This is a question for both you and Dan Driscoll. What is the, property owner bringing to the table? What is, the Zeke property contributing to any of these efforts, other than access to their ground?
I can field that one. The agreement with Sadiq continues to be that they will reimburse us 10 cents on the dollar. That was our original agreement with Sadiq. So that has not changed. And then in terms of the other side of it is the city end of it. And, originally before it became the cities, it had been owned by the Wagers. They also were contributing 10%. At this point in time, the city contributes, what they can, when they can. A recent development, we've mentioned, just alluded to at the last meeting, there's a pile of topsoil at the executive golf course that, they made available to us, and some amount of that would be coming here. Over time, the contribution by the city, has not been particularly large, but we've had a really important contribution from, the Wildland Fire Group. They had assisted in there, and then our United Way group, there's a fair amount of community involved with it. So I'll throw out that much, and Scott, you can pick up wherever from there.
Couple details for sure. First, guys, we're doing what we can. Like to do a little more, maybe in the off season, but the summers are so busy with us, but, if we could do some hauling, I know Dan's alluded to, some spots there to haul that, exempt topsoil, so hopefully we can, help in some of that effort.
And Scott, my concern is not at all with the city, but 10 cents on the dollar from Zadig to repair their property concerns me.
And I don't see like much.
Well, why don't I feel that, basically, that was our arrangement at the beginning, and this was totally a pilot effort to see what we're getting into, and this is an area, it's been that way for decades, and without someone coming and working on it, nobody's ever gonna touch it. So, basically, it's an arrangement we talked with the landowners about, and, as it turned out, the Wagers, they continue to allow us the use of their Bobcat in there. So even though that's not the city contributing or it's the it's been a really big contribution for us. I just can't tell you how many hours I spent out there running that Bobcat and volunteers, and that's what's making this thing, holding it together. Or we could just let it get worse. So 10 cents on the dollar is a very good deal for them. There's no doubt about it. I don't see any reason to change that at this point in time.
I've got a question for you, Dan. Right now, the budget for the Zeke from the previous collaboration was about 6,500. What would the additional 10 grand do that doesn't cover under the 6,500?
It's basically it's just to be able to have additional funds, one of the biggies in there from the Zadig side of it is to try to use the power poles that we've got stockpiled there for a retaining wall. And there's a fair amount of expenditure involved with that. And if that can happen, Zadig said that they would be, happy to try to help us with that. Now, there's no firm commitment there, but, there's a certain amount of expenditures that would need to be occurring in there. And again, it involves the possible rental of a track skid steer. Now, whether or not the Wildland Fire group is available in there, it's kind of the same deal. So does that answer it, or more specific question?
We have 6,500 already budgeted for the Zeke. We're adding another 10 grand. But since 2022, we've only used less than 3,000 of what we budgeted up to 9,000. So I'm just trying to figure out why we need to budget 10 grand. We could, if the city is a willing participant, why are we budgeting the extra 10 grand if it's just the city? And we have 6,500 from the previous project, which hasn't been sunsetted yet. Why not just make the number the 15 grand for the city to do the work and leave it to Zeke until that is actually needed?
There's a fair amount of that the effort would be on the city properties. And, I would be very open to the concept of, reducing the budget to, 15,000 and, focus on the city part of it, because the Zadig end of it, with the exception of that retaining wall area, there's not a lot to look at there.
So when I look at our current budget, we haven't spent the money.
Right.
We'd be adding another 10 grand, and it's just gonna be like a long-term carryover with we've been at it for a long time, and there has been improvement, so I'm not gonna say that it hasn't been a wasted effort, but with that money still sitting there since approval in 2022, I don't really see the need for the other 10 grand, because it's not really a quick drawdown. Now, I could be wrong, but like, that is a concern that I have looking at the budget side of that.
Well, based on that, I guess I would like to amend my motion to, reduce our proposed budget, by $10,000 and to provide funding
for up to 15,000 as opposed to 25,000.
You're talking again about, table one and table two, correct? On pages 32 and 33?
Right.
So, Scott, are you still on the line?
Yeah, I'm still.
So again, Bill Young, so we've got a $1,500 item for a rental of a track skid steer. $1,500 for an excavator. $1,500 for a dump truck, I'm sorry, pickup and dump trailer rental. Aren't those all things that the city has?
Yeah, we do currently have that stuff, yeah.
I thought. So Dan, I mean, those are easy things we can strike out, right?
Well, the question is whether or not the city owns them, whether or not they can provide that. It's always been the same problem, is that they inherited this land. They didn't inherit additional staff to do what we've been working on. So that's the situation. If they are able to provide some of that, that certainly would reduce our expenditures, basically it's gonna be at least 3 years before implementation could occur under 319, and to have, additional funding just available, it's not like we have to go out and spend. I think we've been pretty judicious in spending the least amount possible. Anything that the city would be able to contribute would be huge. Again, in terms of like a track skid steer, the Wildland Fire Group tends to be our best hope there. We get beyond the fire season, they're a great resource. Anything you want to add to that, Scott?
Yeah. There, too, I'm willing to, go a little bit in advance. I know you do, Dan. If we can help in any way, I'd like to. I know we get pretty busy and, it's kind of hard to break away, but it's something that I think we could take a day or two and sure help out.
I guess I had made an amended motion. Have we had a second yet? There hasn't been a second to the amended motion. I seconded my Malawi. Any more?
Rental for the city property.
There is an area in there where it would be really handy to have an excavator to, be able to cast dirt downhill there. It, would be much more efficient than what we've been doing to date with sleds. So that was the intent. Or what?
Okay, I'd like to put more comments before we end up on the board.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
Yep, go ahead.
I've got a quick question. It says amendment by Driscoll, second by Malawi, reduce the budget by 10K set for Tazee. Are we looking at these, that would essentially scratch, table one altogether?
Is that correct? From the amendment maker?
I don't know that was your intent, the way it's written right now.
I guess I would be open for discussion on that. You know, my impression is that, you know, what I penciled out is gonna, if we actually are able to put together that retaining wall, that we probably need a little bit more than what's available there now, that we should amount, you know, have some amount available for Zadig. You know, traditionally, we have not been married to, you know, a specific amount for any entity. You know, what this had done was basically guaranteeing Zadig, you know, that the wording says that we would not spend more than additional 10,000 in there, so that they know they would not spend more than $1,000 in there. You know, at their 10%. At this point in time, I think the simplest thing would be to say that we would scratch table one, just eliminate it, and we will get by on the Zadig property with the funding that we've got. And so we would simply allocate that 15,000 for use on the city property. It's easy enough when we're working on Zadig, say, okay, we're getting near our limit there, let's stop where we're at. So, I don't know that we need to include that as part of the amendment, but I think we've got enough documentation on it that we'll just eliminate table one and allocate the entire 15,000 for the Rapid City. Does that work for you, Bill?
Well, then when we go back to Scott Anderson, he said he's got a skid steer, he's got an excavator, he's got dirt, he's got dump trailers, you know, clearly based on their availability.
Right.
But, I would like to see, I feel much more comfortable supporting a city project than I do supporting a private entity. But I still think we could reduce the numbers on the city property based on what Scott has told us.
I'll field that question. The retaining wall would be built with the power poles that are there. I've looked at it specifically with the Sadiq manager. The city requirements are that for retaining walls that are less than 4 feet high, there is no engineered design involved. You know, the Sadiq had, you know, specifically stated that they would, you know, provide manpower, and if they have a rubber tire skid steer, they would assist us in the effort. So, you know, that's entirely on Zadig property and not within the city property.
So the retaining wall is the D
Right.
copy.
Probably not without court approval. I don't know that they're in bankruptcy or just in a mortgage foreclosure. Also may be, an issue with mortgage foreclosure.
Well, the documents say they're in a bankruptcy court in Florida,
Oh, it does.
like District 11 or something like that. I don't know that.
No, they can't without court approval, they can't. Then they.
I mean, I got a stack of documents over 2 inches high in the last 2 months from all this stuff.
These are issues why I'm not willing. And as far as the city one, I would like to see something here that commits the city more to exactly what they are going to do. Are they gonna provide this equipment? Or is it rather than just what?
Okay, so the motion is on the floor.
And I know, Mr. Chairman, that there's also apparently $1,500 still in the city. Side of the budget.
Motion on, yep,
I have a question. I don't know if it's my place to ask, but as I amended this, you said delete table 1, essentially. Table 1 is where the retaining wall is, so that would completely remove that. Is that correct?
Well, anything we would do would be done with existing funding that's already been allocated.
Oh, okay, so you,
Right.
yes,
Borderline whether or not
yeah,
that would be
okay. And you have the materials there, sounds like.
Clarify that, amendment to indicate we're striking the funds as outlined in figure 1, or table 1. On page, 32.
That would be fine.
Now what did you say?
So we're striking the funds, as outlined on table 1, page 32. But I'm still, Dan, I'm still disinclined to vote for it with 15K for the city park with a lack of direction from the city.
I was just gonna wait for Roy to, return and just throw out that, given that they're asking, there's kind of a request for more of a commitment from the city. I would be completely open to just withdrawing the motion and to kind of pencil things out a little bit more with Scott Anderson and see what kind of commitment he can make. I guess it's my purview to do that. I guess I'll just throw it out as a question, would that be, good guidance for us?
I certainly think so.
So I guess I will just withdraw the motion at this point in time, and I guess. Were you the original second on things, Dan?
That's fine.
David, so the motion is withdrawn and no action is gonna be taken on item 15.
Right, then we'll revisit things.
Okay.
Okay, so how do I just say motion withdrawn?
Which is approval of worker appreciation events for volunteers assisting with erosion control projects as allowable expenditures for such projects. That is Director Driscoll.
So I guess we hashed this one over, last month. And this is basically to generically approve and I guess without any particular constraints, I think we've been very judicious on it before, to date. So I guess, you know, it's the one where I'm specifically have requested reimbursement for, where I will abstain, but on this one, I will not abstain. On the budget, are you still there, Scott? Okay, I think, are you wanting to stay on, or I think we're done with the Star Village end of things, so, I guess we'll just sit down with you one of these days and talk about some more details and then revisit this later. That work for you? Yep. Okay, thanks for your time, Scott. So,
For Deanne Driscoll,
Okay,
before you make your motion on this,
sure if I fully understand the question.
I think he's trying to say, oh, broadening it to all possible West Dakota projects, not including, so including the road and control, but if we do any other projects, then the other fields, when we do, well, with the appreciation, it covers everybody. I think that's what Ron's trying to say. Is that it kind of opens it up for erosion control and any other type of project down in the future that isn't erosion control. I think that's where he's trying to work this comment is working.
Ron, is that a reasonable rendition? Tom?
Sort of appreciation events for volunteers assisting, with, West Dakota Water Development District projects. Approved.
and then he said, and with approved budgets as well.
anyone like to put a motion on the floor?
Well, I'll move that.
Okay.
Okay, so,
After the wording,
so I just change what's here is all I need to do?
Yep.
Okay,
And I, well, he's doing that, I'm looking on page 33
with the budget there. So there's an asterisk with miscellaneous supplies, and then underneath the table, that includes tax refreshments for Ignite and hosting worker appreciation events. So is that the gist of basically having things within a budget like this? That was certainly my intent to accommodate that.
Yeah, I think that would work, because it is stated what the miscellaneous supplies might be, and it is talking about that, so yeah, I think that would apply too. Motion was made by Driscoll, was there a second? Second. Seconded by Bochet. Okay, discussion on the motion.
I think this is totally unnecessary. We can already do this without having a motion. And there's no limits on, as to what this puts on, how much we can charge. What Director Bristol did on page 33 kind of addresses it. This can be done on a project by project basis, so I would vote no on this. It's just redundant, it's saying something we already can do anyway.
Any other discussion?
Director Malali, where does it state that we can do that anyway? That,
Saying we can't do it, therefore the board can allocate money pretty much any way they want. So, I mean, there's nothing in the policies or bylaws that address it either, and I hate to clutter those up, not that we're doing, have this case, but. We've done this before, we've reimbursed Director Bristol for this in March of 23. So we can do it already.
That time remaining budget is put forward, and if we approve that budget, then we've approved the expenditure.
Yeah, if we don't like that particular line item, then we have to issue. So that based on, feel. On the particular one. Comments and questions. Where this would get worded.
I think the reason we're voting on it was that the last month we said, let's put it on the record, so that it's on the record for the public. Was a lot.
Yeah. I can't remember if I spoke on it back then. The next motion is gonna be to reimburse you for some past stuff. Which to me addresses the issue.
I think the benefit of this, and I understand where it's redundant, but then if we know that it's already built in, we won't have to take that vote on that reimbursement that is outside the budget. And so that's kind of my open, like, I get where you're coming from, and like, yeah, we could vote on it, but in my mind is that if we have it in there, it's already known, it's a known thing, and then we're not having to look back 2 years, well, did we do X, did we do Y, we kind of already have a.
Except we'll still have to look back at this meeting, but what did we vote on? I could see it make more sense. Before that. Puts it into policy.
Comment, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same side. One no, it will be Director Malali. Now, the next item, which is formally item 11 in your packet, is a reimbursement of Director Driscoll for an employee appreciation party. You can see that the receipts are there, and you can review them, they were in the packet. And I believe that it is correct.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reimburse Director Driscoll $529.18 for volunteer appreciation.
Second.
Expenses.
Seconded by Young. Discussion,
one item, I think in the future that, I completely support this effort, but I don't think that we should be in a position that we are paying for beer. Just as an organization.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I agree. I get calls whenever this comes up on the agenda. I got one person has me on speed dial. I would agree in any case, but, how to have a substitute motion that we subtract off the alcohol on this particular reimbursement, which would bring it to, so in other words, reimburse Director Driscoll for the amount of $430 and 43 cents.
For a second to the substitute motion.
Concerned about liability issues too, if somebody drinking at a party.
If the second agrees, can this be amended as opposed to something? I'm comfortable with it.
We can either do an amendment or substitute.
Like the second it, and then,
I'm gonna abstain.
oh, yeah.
I'm not.
But you're comfortable with it?
Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
I'll second it then.
Seconded by Young. Okay, discussion on the motion?
Just put the number in there. Cents. I don't think it- I did try to break out tips or everything, it's just.
430 and what?
430.43.
43?
Any discussion on the substitute? Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any motion? Okay, then the next one is approved, proposed bylaw change. It was number 13 in your packet. Just a fun fact, just like the proposal change, it does take a 2/3 vote on this item. The proposed changes are listed in red on page 18.
Mr. Chairman, you propose to vote on it in mass, or you'll take the change by change?
I was thinking in mass unless there is a statement of the change on change. Like, do you want to do one paragraph at a time in the red, or would you like it sentence by sentence?
My intent was 3 different votes on separate items, and I guess, leading into that, the first change was that we would be, notified 2 weeks in advance. We wouldn't have to put that into the bylaw, this last time, Larry provided 2 weeks' notice. I mostly wanted, if it's gonna be a change, we'd have at least 2 weeks' notice, so, I don't know if we're allowed to just, would we have a consensus that, if it's gonna be, typically, we expect the meeting to be the Monday, a week in advance of our meeting. And normally, we're counting on that, so, because we just kind of have a unwritten rule, that unwritten policy, that if it's gonna be something different than that, we'll get extra notice. Would we as a board be comfortable with that? I would just soon not have to write it into our bylaw.
Talking to section 2.
On page 17, right, section the executive. I guess I'm gonna suggest that, do we hear otherwise from anybody? You know, I would prefer just to withdraw that from the bylaw.
The section 2 change,
Right.
okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine. There really hasn't been a big problem. the way we do it.
It came up just because, you know, for our previous meeting, our committee was trying to get out a planning document, and it came up kind of sudden that all of a sudden, you know, it was moving up. So I guess on the other two items, I'm indifferent whether we consider them separately or together. Um,
Separate consideration. So define two items, are you talking two paragraphs? Two paragraphs on page 18.
So I guess I'll start out by moving that, to approve the new wording as shown in the first of those two paragraphs.
It's on my packet. The first sentence of the first paragraph, that should be in red, I think. Ah. Is that already existing?
That's existing, yes. Sure, but I was pretty sure I just added wording to what already existed. Do you have the document, the full document at your fingertips, Larry?
The, Dan's right there. Okay, somehow that didn't come across because I remember now seeing this. I changed the color in the original document or the packet, but apparently it didn't take in the final.
That's the entire paragraph.
So the entire paragraph, yes.
Okay, so that should,
Yep.
Let's clarify here. Are you saying that the sentence starting with meeting agendas should be implied in compliance should be in red?
I believe,
I didn't come up with that word.
I do.
Oh, you,
Yeah, that's
you did. Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, that's it. See his tag over here with a link to the South Dakota documents. And when I copied it over, because it was a comment on the document, it didn't copy over. So I went in physically and changed the color on it. I remember doing it, but apparently it didn't take.
So are we voting on this? The fact that it was red, or implement this if we feel like we need to wait?
On those same lines, I got one line at the last, second paragraph, is, the third paragraph from the top, the last.
Probably another comment that.
It was another comment, so that one must have come across. Yeah. So this top one, the purple would be Dan's suggestions to Dan's original. Yeah,
But
yeah.
they didn't land in the meeting package. So, in essence, the entirety of both paragraphs are new words relative to the previous title.
So should I change this sentence to red? Okay, I wanted to get the
The
The first paragraph.
first paragraph
Which
of
is-
Article 4, Section 1. Article 4, Section 1, Article 4.
Yes.
With this change on those comments, including, probably next, does that meet the 25 days?
The question, the question that would have to be asked if they were submitted as changes, it would technically, they were there, but like I said, if nobody knew that was a change, that kind of puts it into a gray area of,
Kind of,
Yeah.
put this in a very good way.
Yeah.
They had the change that was submitted, comment to a change.
Yeah.
Whether that was part of the change or not.
I'll say if there's any doubt, we should put it on.
that's kind of where I'm leaning.
And if that's the case, I would like to change item from admin, since we're using program administrator in the rest of the document. We should use items from program administrator. In fact, I think we also say the secretary or program administrator.
So that will have to all get submitted as a.
And the change.
Change with 25-day notice, apparently.
Yeah. So
Oh, up here. No?
And then Larry, you see where I want to add that in the red? Final sentence of, director's items from admin, right there, yeah.
In this paragraph here with the purple
Yeah,
sentence?
some-
Yeah.
Black, it refers to secretary or program administrator.
Oh, right
And so
here,
where it
this one,
says
okay.
It says admin. Right here on the big screen. I would like this language to match.
The sponsorship by program administrator, so do you want me just to submit a new set of changes for 2 months from now? I can just retool it, we don't have to waste our time here retooling it all.
I think that's smart.
There's no hurry on it.
you withdraw them,
I'll withdraw the motion.
withdraw the motion.
Yes, and I'll defer until our next meeting.
Okay, so then that moves to item 19, which is chair's comments. Thank everyone coming to the meeting. As you can see, Director Cove is on Microsoft Teams. That is something that I am going to try to implement more, especially with our directors that can't make it, so that it is a web, so if you have a laptop, tablet, or cell phone, you can get on and that you can kind of be in part of the meeting. We will probably try to work it out better so that our mic situation is a little bit better.
Yeah.
This was a test run, but I'd like to thank everyone. Okay, item 20, items from directors. Okay,
Imagine that. Okay, so I got 3 points, or 3 things, items of information. On the 20th of August at 6:30 at the Journey Museum, we will have Dr. Ellen Wool speaking virtually. Google her. She is amazing. her talk will be on the importance of resilient watersheds. This woman is probably the biggest head in, riparian restoration right now. She's absolutely fantastic. Item two, we're continuing to do creek cleanup, second Saturday of every month. You can follow us on the, socials for that. And, Larry, the title of that, whole presentation is The Importance of Resilient Watersheds.
Can you email it to us?
Yeah, I can. I'll make a note. And it will be, it is our second speaker in our riparian restoration series. Our next field day will be, mid-September. I'll email you those dates. We'll be taking another tour of the work that we're doing on Silver Creek, Gimlet Creek, and, Greens Gulch. There's a lot of cool momentum right now. The, feds actually have released some money that they had promised to do a collaboration with the Osete Sakowin and bringing tribal members to the Black Hills to work on watershed restoration projects. So some cool stuff on the horizon. Any other comments from directors?
I've got several of these summer squash that need to find a home. After-
Hey, anything else? Yes, I'll let Director Mullally and then Director Dakota.
Okay. Well, just read, look into zeroing out that Pennington Conservation District. What's in the back? Which are in particular about what role the deep fund conflict, which is gonna. And looking, a bunch of us actually walked the ditch. And found spots where the ditch crosses the stormwater runoff. Looking for potentially ways to get water back in that ditch because Rapid Valley is dying. You drive down Longview, you'll see dead trees. So that's something that's a predictable. Father is, she's the planning director, has actually kind of taken the lead as. I think she's gonna try to set up a meeting with the city on some of these issues. The Hawthorne ditch originated by the fairgrounds in the city, and they shut it down with no notification to anybody. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Went to, or just a general contract when,
Jason Phillips.
Jason.
Parasite, Ron.
Parasite.
Yeah. Then I would like to find out about this from our attorney of time. How does this consideration relate to 46A?
Anything else, Ron?
I'm gonna take a look at that, I'm not quite sure I understand what he means by construction. What do you mean by construction, Ron?
Everything we're doing right now with erosion control. We're renting machines, we're marshaling forces, we're designing projects. Construction project. There's nothing else.
I can help streamline you, Larry. You recall seeing a email exchange with Jason Phillips?
Yes.
It
And-
should be as simple as rattling his cage.
Okay. See if I can get a response out of him.
Nothing, moving on to items from admin.
Okay, at all of your stations, there's a brochure from West Dakota Rural Water Systems that they sent, and they're also requesting all of your home addresses so they can send you directly information. And I was not at all gonna do that without running it by you first. Okay, so my suggestion would be that if they want to send you things, they send a packet of them to me, and I can distribute them to you. Okay, okay. Yeah, they were in a big envelope, you know, and, so,
This first.
oh. Yeah. And then second, and Director Mullally already asked about it, but the agreement with the garage, has been renewed, and I guess if I stepped out of bounds, I simply just viewed it as it paying another expense. But it's all, ACH, so it's electronic withdrawal. And then I get the notification, of course, I see it in the bank, and so we are good for, I think it's 1 year at a time. So it started this month and will go till August of
400 a month?
500. Yeah. And that includes coffee. So- Yes, yeah, and we get that for 5 hours a month, I think is what we can schedule for. Not that I've ever seen, no. Okay, I'm good. Nope, I'm done.
Okay, items from the public. Thank you guys for saying. He's pretty frightening. The water shortage is the base. Data where we really, if I lose so many people from the study, again, just because of numbers, population growth. I don't know exactly what the study said as far as what do you call it, not the watershed, but the water, gonna lose, and. Madison, I was gonna say, the refill rates, it said, it didn't mention in the article I read out of the 6
It says someone probably feeling fast enough, I would, they hard, don't know the technology of it. But it sounds bad to me. And if you've ever looked at the studies, Fines did, they had the guy come out, that was part of the original, whichever the first one we followed, that was. It took them like 20 years. He said he's part of the design team, the last camp they got came. So the giving feature, probably made, this is gonna be enough, so we had it, like that thousand. Good thing we did, because the day we turned the tap on, we were already over what our initial ask was gonna be. I just wanted to be aware of, it's a real problem for us in South Florida. And we will be to get on board at the federal level, but I think everybody would get some help. Because these things take a lot of years to get going, once you really kind of get there. I think we're way behind the curve. Thank you for listening to me and for all the attention you give to water.
If you want to look at that maintenance study, it's on our website. Because anything that we fund, we usually ask for a deliverable, so that one should be up there. So if you want more information, go to.
I might still have, I was on council, I guess, on April 16th, but for the record, I'm in the city, Florida, box elder.
Did you sign in? Okay, okay.
If we actually got that started, so, 10,000.
People had to keep it up, a lot of places didn't, but we did.
Thank you guys for staying through the long meeting, and I will adjourn the meeting.
Kind of fun to go to other meetings, watch other people. People have